Good morning. Welcome to Palm Sunday. It's just crickets. Just go back into worship. Is that what you guys want to do? Man, it's good to have God in the house, ain't it? This thing is gonna. Yep, we're good now. All right. Has anybody ever found out what your limits are? Anybody? Anybody found out what your limits are? Anybody? Yeah. Okay. The Limitless. Yeah. There's a movie, and I think a TV series called Limitless. Nope. I'm not saying that it's a movie you should watch, but I'm just saying there's a pill that you could take. It's clear. And you all of a sudden are the smartest, most capable person in the world. So how many people wish that was a real thing? Just our young people. That's interesting. Just just like youth leaders? Like you guys are all like, yeah, I want that clear pill. No, you don't want that clear pill? All right. I'll take it if it was real, as long as it didn't have any side effects. No side effects. What was the last thing that you experienced that revealed to you what your limits were? It's actually in my notes to address that today. You said Mill Street? Yeah. Cleaning. Okay. All right. Anything else? What was the last time something happened and you found out what your limits were? A race. Yeah, running. My limit would be putting my shoes on, preparing to run. I was just like, yep, there it is. What else? I heard something else back here. What was that? Sickness. That will definitely teach you what your limit is. Yep. How about doing things on your own? Find your limits. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about somebody who isn't limited. And this is our last Sunday talking about God's nature. Before we get into Easter. And so today we're going to talk about how God is infinite. Okay? He's infinite, which means he has no limits. Point at yourself right now and say, self, God has no limits. So stop limiting him. Okay? All right. We live in a world where we will measure everything, right? Anybody like measuring things? Okay. So you work at a job where you do nothing but measure. There are other people in this house who work at the same place. None of them raised their hand when it said they like to measure things. I'm concerned about what's going on at your shop right now. That's worrisome, right? But we live in this world, though, where we constantly will measure things, okay? So we measure how many calories we take in. Anybody do that? Are you kidding me? It's March. Ain't nobody doing that no more, right? All right. We will measure how many likes we get. Anybody love social media? Some people do. Some people, okay. All right. How about this? Do you measure how many people like you? No. Where are my honest people at today? Is there anybody who it bothers you if you know somebody doesn't like you? Like deep down, it bothers you, right? Like you're like, what did I do to make you hate me like you do? Anybody? Okay. All right. What about this? We will measure time, right? We will measure time, and we will measure time based on what we need to do and what our calendars say. We will measure time, right? And we could keep going on with the things that we measure, but let's just be real with ourselves today enough to say we also measure people around us. Publicly, I need to apologize to Josh this morning. Not you, Josh. Not you, Josh, and not you, Josh, but that Josh Mosley. It was brought to my attention that I might have touched on you being small too much last week. It was brought up that I roasted you, was the exact words used. So I apologize, but I'm not probably done today. So, but we will measure people, right? Sometimes we'll measure people that when they walk into a room, we'll look at them and we go, ooh, you're bigger than me. Does anybody else do that? Right? Right? Anybody ever get to a place where somebody walks into a room and you go, ooh, you might be stronger than me? Does anybody do that? Okay, just maybe as a guy thing. Sometimes when guys walk in and they're bigger than me and they look definitely stronger than me, I'm just like, you're the last guy I'm going to talk to. Right? I don't know. It's like an insecurity thing. I don't know if it's because I'm fluffy. I don't know what that means. But it gets to this place, though, where we will measure people and we will assess with our own personal measurement system their strengths, their weaknesses, and what they can do for me. Right? How much can we expect out of them? How much can we put on them? Because we will just naturally will measure who people are. Right? You could hear someone open their mouth for the first time and go, I will never give you a microphone. Right? You could watch somebody's actions and go, I'm not going to put you out in front of people. Right? We do this constantly, and we do it not even knowing that we do it, right? Has anybody ever judged someone? I just wanted to throw out a question that I knew the answer was. Yes, just to see if everybody did it. Right? Anybody judge somebody before you even met someone? Have you ever judged somebody based on what somebody else has measured them up to be? Right. We just naturally will do it. We'll just measure people out, right? And so when we depend so heavily on this system of measurement, without us even realizing it, you can find yourself in a place where you begin to measure yourself against God. You begin to measure out what can God do, what is he doing, and is he worth it? And we don't even realize that we're doing those things. But the thing about it is it's only an attempt, right? You can't physically measure God, right? We can all agree on that today. We can't physically measure his power. We can't physically measure how good he is. We can't physically measure how much he loves us because he's infinite. But the fact of the matter is that we sometimes will try. Solomon was in the midst of building a temple for God. And even in 2 Chronicles 2, 5, and 6, he says this. He says, the temple I am going to build will be great because our God is greater than all other gods. But who is able to build a temple for him since the heavens, even the highest heavens, cannot contain him? Who then am I to build a temple for him except as a place to burn sacrifices before him? Even Solomon, in the midst of building this beautiful temple, he's like, I don't know why I'm building this thing. I can't contain you in this, God. But I'm going to build it. I'm going to be obedient, and we'll go from there, right? Have you ever felt small? Because I said I wasn't done, and Josh is close enough that he knows I'm not being serious, right? Have you ever felt small? Have you ever stood next to a building and then looked up and went, ooh, I'm not as big as I thought I was, right? There's some famous trees out west. You ever seen pictures of those trees? So big they've actually carved a tunnel through them to drive through them. I mean, come on, right? And then if you start to look at how big our planet is, you start to look at how big our universe is. You start to look at all of those things, and you realize that we are all very tiny. Point at yourself today and say, self, you are small compared to everything else. Right? How many times, though, do we take ourselves, though, and we think we are the big one, right? We're it, capital I, right? We're the thing, right? And so even David, though, in Psalm 8:4-9, it says, "What is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. You have made them a little lower than the angels and crowned them with glory and honor. You made them rulers over the works of your hands. You put everything under their feet, all flocks and herds and the animals of the wild, the birds in the sky and the fish in the sea, all that swim the paths of the seas. Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth." He's even saying, like, you made humans and then you gave them the ability to be in charge, God, of everything you made. Why? Right? We're small. We're not infinite. And I think the biggest thing is that when we understand how infinite God really is, that should ground us when any kind of pride starts to rise up in us. This morning, as we were getting ready for church, Nikolai was ready before I was ready, and he was standing there in front of me asking me when we were going to church, and I said, "Look at me. Do I look like I'm going to church right now?" And he said, "No, but when are we going?" And I was like, "As soon as I say we're going, okay?" And so then he looks at me, and I go, "Hey, is that your hat on the ground?" Parents ever say that? Like, "Hey, is that yours on the ground?" And he goes, "No, it's not mine." I'm like, "You're telling me that your sick brother went down and got his hat and then threw it in the living room?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's not mine." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "You want to bet?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh." I said, "I bet you $10 that that's your hat. When you go downstairs to put it on your hook, you're going to realize that there's an open hook there because your hat is in the living room." And he goes, "All right, you're on." And I was like, "First of all, you're broke. Second of all, this has backfired on you multiple times already, Mr. I had to wear Michigan stuff to school." And he goes downstairs into his room, and I don't hear anything. And I'm like, "Yep, got him." Because how many people know that if your kid proves you wrong, they are going to yell as loud as they can that they proved you wrong, right? I don't hear anything. And I hear the closet door open. I hear it shut, still silence. And I'm like, "Yeah, you owe me money." He comes up the stairs and he gets to the top and he looks over at me and I go, "So, did you hang it up on your brother's side?" He goes, "No, it was mine." And I go, "Where's my money?" And he goes, Well, wait. Right? But he was so confident that he was right and I was wrong. He was willing to bet something that he didn't even have. And we can be that same way when it comes to thinking, "God, we know how you're going to work, God. You've worked in my life this way before, God, right? Like, God, you've brought me through something like this, and guess what? You're going to bring me through the same thing, just identical to the way you did it the last time." How many people know that doesn't work? But we still think, and when it doesn't happen the way we want it, all of a sudden we're like, "What? God, why?" And it's because he's got so much infinite wisdom that he's like, "I know what's best for you right now," right? So sometimes we've got to understand he's so infinite that our pride should shut up, right? We're tiny. Here's Solomon again in 1 Kings 8:27. He's speaking again, understanding God and how infinite he is. And he said, "But will God really dwell on earth? The heavens, even the highest heavens, cannot contain you. How much less this temple I have built?" Isaiah 66:1 says this. This is what the Lord says: "Heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house you will build for me? Where will my resting place be?" This is a big thing because I think sometimes we can lose a view of who he is. Heaven is his throne and the earth is his footstool. Last week, we talked about him being omnipotent, all-powerful. We talked previously before that about him being omniscient, all-knowing. And the last omni that we're going to talk about today is he's omnipresent. He is everywhere, infinite, right? I think we also need to understand that there's two more words that we can add to that list of omnipresent is he's transcendent and he's immanent. God is transcendent, which means God is above, completely other than, and independent of his own creation. Right? He's infinite in all aspects of his being, and he never changes. How many people know that people change? Right? Relationships change. Right? Sometimes friends change. Right? We watch our kids change. Anyone? Right? They're so sweet when they're little. Then they start becoming teenagers and you're like, why? Why? And then like with a teenager, it's interesting because they're like Sour Patch Kids. They can be a little sour, but then you get a glimpse of their sweetness and you're like, I love you. And then they instantly turn the sour back on and be like, gross, right? Anybody, you experienced that? Like you got some teenagers in your life? Come on, youth leaders. I'm waiting for a shake, right? Right? It happens, right? People change. We go through things and we change. Things happen around us and we change, but God never changes. No matter what the political climate is of the world, God never changes. No matter what you're going through in your personal life, God never changes. He's always the same, right? God has no source. He has no beginning. He has no end. God needs nothing. He depends on nothing, and he owes nothing, right? He is infinite. But God is also immanent. He sustains. He's involved with and he's present with his creation. He's invested in our worlds. So I want you to catch that today. Two things. God is above, completely different than what he's created, but yet he's present with his creation. Okay? Both of those at the same time. Colossians 1:17 says this, he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Some of us probably need to say that for ourselves today. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. If you feel like you can't keep it together, guess who can? Him. Right? If you feel like you're holding on and you've got one finger left, it's like last week I was thinking about how Josh Mobley hurt me last week. I almost broke my fingers. And I was thinking about when I held on to that little tiny Smartie package with one finger and how I thought to myself, this is going to be it for me, right? And sometimes we can hold on to things so closely to ourselves on our own that we can feel like I can't keep it together. Anybody? Everybody point at yourself. See, I'm not doing the neighbor thing today. Say, self, you can't keep it together. Okay? Now look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I can't keep it together. Okay? Look at your other neighbor and say, guess what? I can't keep it together. Okay? All right. We can't keep it together. We can try, but we can't keep it together. In Psalm 104:14, this shows you exactly how much he's invested in us. He makes grass grow for the cattle. Thank God for beef. And plants for people to cultivate, bringing forth food from the earth, right? He cares. He cares. I think sometimes in our personal interactions with God, though, we can swing between viewing him through a lens of transcendence and immanence separately. Right? Like we can view him as being like, sometimes we can get to a place, if we're just going to be real with ourselves, we can get to a place where we feel like God is very far away from us. Right? We can get to a place where we feel like we are so small and God is just big and lording over us, right? We can get to a place where we're like, God, you don't really care about me, right? If you've been saved for a while, you might have to go back into your memory bank, but you probably can realize that there was a moment in your life where you thought to yourself, God, you really don't care about me. I don't deserve to be cared for, right? I think also we can get to a place where we can view God almost and make him too close to us, where we lose the fear factor of his and him being infinite, of him being omnipotent, of him being, all these omnis that we've already talked about. Like, I think we can make him too right in front of us to where we lose the fear. And so what we do is we live lives that contradict each other. We start to make up our own rules because we don't have that fear of who God is. We don't have that fear of the power that he wields. The beauty of it is, though, is God is really transcendent and immanent simultaneously. Isaiah 57:15 says, "For this is what the high and exalted one says, he who lives forever, whose name is holy. I live in a high and holy place, but also with the one who is contrite and lowly in spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the contrite." Psalm 113:5-8 says, "Who is like the Lord our God, the one who sits enthroned on high, who stoops down to look on the heavens and the earth. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. He seats them with princes and with the princes of his people." God reigns and dwells eternally, yet he's at home with the lowly. He sits on a throne in heaven, but yet he cares about the person who's in a pit right now. There was a day in my life that I almost genuinely died. And this is why I don't swim. This is a serious conversation, Anne. It's very traumatic for me. Geez, thanks for not caring. But this moment in my life, I remember we were at some friends of my mom and dad's, and I was like 4, 5 maybe, I don't know. And the way this pool was the shallow end sloped down to the deep end, but right in the slope was the filter, where it was like constantly making the water, whatever it was. It may not have been a filter, but it was constantly moving, and it had like some suction on it. And all of the kids that I was hanging out with moved to the deep end of the pool and left me at the shallow end of the pool. And who loves that? Right? All the cool kids left, and I was by myself. And I was like, I don't want to be by myself anymore, right? There's a song talks about all by myself. Yep, you got it. You're humming it. Go ahead. Go ahead. Turn this into karaoke this morning. All of the parents were sitting at a picnic table where the adults were allowed to sit. Y'all remember those days where the adults had their table? Kids, do whatever you want to do, just don't die. Kids weren't allowed at that table. Anybody experienced that ever before? And they're all at the pool. They're all at this picnic table outside of the pool. It was an above-ground pool. And as I made my way towards the group of kids who I thought surely if I go under, they're going to help me. Why would I trust my peers? And as I slipped under, I recognized very quickly that I was not going to make it back up. And I bobbed up and down 3 times. And then I went under. And I thought to myself as a little child, I remember it still to this day. That's why I cry every time I have to take a shower. I I remember it, and I thought to myself, this is it. Nobody saw me. And the next thing I remembered, that should not happen. The next thing I remembered is I felt a hand grab me and yank me up out of the water. And I was a big kid, so that wasn't easy. Yanked me up and out of the water, and when I turned around, I realized it was my dad. And what I realized is that my dad, who was also a kind of a large, stocky man, he had jumped from the ground up to over the above ground pool through a rail that a large man should not fit through, and grabbed me because he saw me on my last bob and realized I wasn't coming up. And so when I read that scripture, it gives me a great beauty of how God is with us, because he is sitting on a throne that we're not sitting on. Shouldn't be sitting on the throne, right? And he reaches down when we take our last bob in life, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to come down and pick you up out of that. He's infinite, so he's on the throne, but yet he's right there with us, so he can go, nope, I'm going to pick you up out of that. I'm going to pull you out of this. You think you're done, but you're not done yet, right? And we have to grasp that image of God like he's reigning, but yet he's still with us, right? He's on the throne, but he's still sitting here watching us, and he's there for us, right? Transcendence and the immanence of God being infinite is a doorway to a deeper and more grateful experience in worship. I want you to understand that. Like, anybody ever been in worship and you felt stuck? You're trying to worship and you just feel like, I don't feel it. Anybody, you been there? You watch other people around you experiencing what you want to experience, and you're not experiencing it, right? And you start to rack your brain and you go, why don't I feel anything? You start to understand, like, why everybody else is feeling something that I can't get a hold of, and why not, right? And I think it's because we have to understand his transcendence and immanence. Our corporate and personal worship can suffer from a failure to capture both of those together, right? If we come in and we've only captured the one of them, and we're like, God, you're so far away. God, I don't feel you. God, I feel dry. I've made that statement before. I just feel dry. Anybody? Like, you're like, come on, tears. Feel it, right? Anybody ever felt in that situation, and then you go and you put on the one worship song that you know will make you cry? And then you play it, and it doesn't make you cry? And then you sit there and you're like, I messed up. I might have backslid. Anybody ever been there? Just me. Cool. But we can actually let our worship suffer from a failure to capture both of those at the same time, right? If we don't view God as great, he will never compel us in reverence and fear and obedience. If we just don't view him as how great he is, we will never get to those points. And if our view of him isn't as him being near, we'll never experience gratitude, joy, and amazement, right? We've got to be able to experience him here and here at the same time, understanding that he reigns and he's separate from us, but also that he's with us, right? I think church, capital C, we've majored in this feeling of we want people to feel comfortable and welcomed, and that God is near to them. But we leave something out. This day and age, we leave out the fact, though, that but we should still reverently fear him. We want people to come in, and we want the hot coffee, and we want the cold waters, and we want, snacks for people to grab because they didn't have time between whenever they woke up and 10 o'clock to get something to eat. We want everybody to feel welcomed. We want everybody to feel warm. We want everybody to be accepted. We want everybody to fit in. We want everybody's concerns to be met. Capital C Church has majored in that feeling for decades. But instead, though, we should be coming in understanding that if it wasn't for Jesus, if it wasn't for God being so near to his creation, instead of a hot cup of coffee or a cold water, we should walk in and know that we deserve. We actually deserve to be judged for our sins that we may have committed that morning. We come in and we want to just come in and be cozy and warm, and we want the 4 songs to feel great, and we want to have this experience, and I just want to walk out of here feeling really good today, and church has done that for a long time. But what we have to understand is, like, what if we were to realize that when we walked in, we actually deserve judgment? We've actually got some things that we should probably come and lay on the altar that we've messed up with this week. Before we ever get our coffee, we should be like, Lord, I need to get right with you first. I need to come back and covenant with you first, right? Instead, we're like, before I come in covenant, I want to break my own bread, Lord. Right? I'm going to get my coffee. I'm going to have my conversation. I'm going to hang out with my peeps, and I'm going to have a great service, and then I'm going to go have lunch at Culver's. That's the only one I can think of, because that's the only one I go to a lot. But what if we started coming to our corporate worship services on Sunday with the awareness that we cannot reach the God that we've come to reach unless he gives us a way to reach him? Should I say that again? Okay. What if we came into our corporate worship services on Sunday and we realized that the God we're coming here to reach, we can't unless he gives us a way to reach him? Would that not change how intense your worship is Monday through Saturday? Would that not change how intense your prayer time is Monday through Saturday? Knowing that Sunday I'm coming corporately for a purpose, and that purpose should be that you are coming corporately with your brothers and sisters to walk into the presence of God together, right? Have community with each other. I just talked to somebody a couple weeks ago, and they said, you know what? We've been going to a church downstate, and we've been watching stuff online when we can't be there, and it's just, I feel like there's something I'm missing, and that something is community. There's something about walking into a building, worshiping, wanting to experience God the same way as somebody else next to you, right? And then you look at them and they go, well, they're experiencing it, then I want to experience it, right? Anybody ever been there? Man, it's quiet in here today. It's really awkward. I don't even have my wife to look at today, which makes it, I'll just stare at Josh. Hey, you. I'll pick my poison. I feel like I stare at you a lot. I don't want to keep staring at you, unless you like it. All right. You two can't see that I winked. It's okay. But I think we have to understand, like, man, like, there is something about Sunday that you should be preparing for Monday through Saturday, right? Knowing that the only way I'm going to reach God is if he reaches down and gives me a way to reach him. I am going to be intense with my Monday through Saturday, right? He invites us into this relationship with him. 1 Chronicles 29:11 says this: yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the majesty and the splendor, for everything in heaven and earth is yours. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. Right? Do we have that verbiage with God? Like, do we have that verbiage, that time where you come to your prayer time with him and you don't ask him for anything, but you just tell him who he is? Where you just spend the time making sure that he understands that you understand who he is, right? You ever do that with your spouse? I can say whatever I want to say. She's not here today. I'll not go home right after church then. I'm going to Culver's. Culver's. Great. Now, if I'm not there and somebody else goes there, they're going to come back next week and go, I thought you were going to go to Culver's, Pastor. Bet you're a liar now, huh? Here's the thing. I've done that with my wife, where we've sat at a date night after being married for a long time, and we've looked at each other and we've been like, hey, remind me why you fell in love with me. Anybody ever done that? Try it with your spouse sometime. Talk about why they fell in love with you. Ask them why they love you right now. If you don't have a spouse, go to your closest friend. Ask your friend, why do you love me? Why do you care for me? Why did you become my friend in the first place, right? Because all of a sudden, as they begin to speak, I like to do it whenever we do like premarital counseling. I like to ask one spouse or the other, and I like to go, tell me why you fell in love with them. Because there's something cool that happens. As the one begins to talk, the other one starts to look at them, starts to smile. Sometimes starts to realize, like, wow, they really think highly of me. And I have this image, and it's just my image because it's the way my brain works, and if it's wrong, it's wrong, but that's how God made me. And I kind of think about that too. Like, sometimes I think God's like, why do you love me? Right? Tell me why you love me. Instead of asking me every day for something, why do you love me? What am I to you? Right? Tell me what I am to you. Tell me what you know about me. Tell me why you love me, right? It might change something, right? I remember the first time I met Jared. I looked at him and I was like, that is not a guy that's going to like me. You know what's funny? As I didn't even officially meet him, he just walked by my car. I saw him through my windshield and I was like, he's not going to like me. That's a true story. It was right outside when Lindsay was meeting with Kara right before she got married. It was right after we moved here. And Jared comes walking by and I'm like, not that guy. We're not going to be friends. I can already feel it. And everybody had told me, you got to meet Jared. And I was like, if that's Jared. No, I don't. All right? Yeah, I never told you that. No. Strengthening the relationship right now. I met Jared in passing, I believe at the wedding that next day or day, I don't know. And I just in passing, and I still was like, nope. Definitely not this guy. He's not going to like me. Way cooler than me. We don't fit. We don't fit. And then Jared came with his wife, Ashley, to our church for a meeting that we had to talk about a project we were going to do together. And after the meeting, we sat in the foyer. We stood in the foyer out here, and then we became one. He started telling me things like, hey, I have a PT Cruiser. And I was like, what? I have a PT Cruiser. Like, we started, like, connecting. That was it. Then I was like, wait, he's just as cool as me then. Okay, cool, right? And then the more and more we started to talk, the more and more we realized, like, wow, like, this is kind of what I've been waiting for, right? And the beauty of that is we really don't tell each other probably enough, right? Like, once in a while we'll hug, and once in a while we'll go, I love you. We whisper so nobody hears us. Doesn't make it creepy. But I think, like, man, what if we got into the habit of just telling people why they are what we are. Like, why I love you? I love you because fill in the blank. And then when you go to pray, don't ask God for nothing and go, God, I love you because you saved me. God, I love you because you pulled me out of a pit that surely would have killed me if I would have stayed in it. God, I love you because you've given me 100 second chances. God, I love you because you overlook all my imperfections that I'm still holding on to. God, you are amazing. Like, what if you just started doing that? You started telling him how good he's been to you. And then you're going to get done and go, I didn't ask you for anything. Wow, I feel great, right? Because how many people know if you just keep getting asked for something, that gets old after a while, don't it? I think if we focus on the fact of like, if we were just to focus on the fact that God is a transcendent God, I think it will change our worship in the fact that we would begin to feel like worship was something that was our duty to do. We would begin to think that worship was boring. Worship doesn't satisfy me. It's distasteful to me now, right? Because all of a sudden you're viewing God differently. We get to a place, I think, where you'd look at it and go, man, like, why do I keep praying, right? But God made us in his image. And awesomely, I can't even talk. He also made us, though, that he's distinct from us. And the more we can understand how different he really is, the closer we can push in to marvel at who he is. There's a Hebrew word called kavod. And the definition of that word kavod means weight, heaviness. See, God is omnipresent. He's everywhere at all times. But the beauty of it is when we can capture his infinite, when we can capture who he is, when we can capture the fact that he's transcendent and he's immanent, and we can hold on to both of those at the same time, his omnipresence will actually become his presence here with us. He'll go from the God that's just everywhere all at once to the God who inhabits our praise. Y'all know that feeling, right? And if you haven't experienced, I ask you just during worship, push in, right? Because there's something that shifts when his omnipresence becomes his presence. There's something that changes in the atmosphere. All of a sudden, you feel like you're the only one in the room. All of a sudden, you feel like there is a heaviness to the air around you, right? All of a sudden you experience like, man, something has shifted in the room. You'll hear people in church, it's their church language, right? That, oh man, the atmosphere shifted. It's real. When you understand and hold on to the fact that God is infinite, he's omnipresent, but you're running after him and chasing after him, all of a sudden his omnipresence, where he's everywhere, becomes his presence for real for you. Sometimes all you've got to do is just press in deeper. Sometimes all you've got to do is say, God, I want more, right? Jesus, all I want is you. I don't want anything else, right? I don't want anything else. I just want you. I want to feel the weight of your presence. We live in a world right now where you can get everything weighted right now. You can get weighted blankets. You can get weighted hoodies. You can get weighted things because people say, I just need it. I don't like it, but I just need it. So it just feels comfortable. Right? Ashley, why do you have a weighted blanket? I thought you did. Chris does. Who has a weighted blanket? Why do you have a weighted blanket? Because it's comfy. In the same sense, though, why would we not walk in and go, God, I want your presence. I want the full weight of your presence today. Because it's comfortable. I want to be in your presence because it brings me comfort in the midst of chaos. God, I want the weight of your full presence today because, God, I'm honestly saying I need that more than anything today. right? You can go ahead and play wrap-up music. I think on Sunday mornings, I think especially we should come in with the expectation of feeling the weight of that presence. I think the weight of his presence could do a lot more than anybody laying hands on you. I think you could step in and feel his presence and go, yep, this is why I came today. You could feel his glory and go, yep, this is why I'm here today. There's no one like him. The best way that we can focus on this is that he is holiness and he is mercy at the same time. He is grace and he is truth. He's sovereign and he's a servant. He's God and he was man. And he is over all, through all, and he is in all. That is the infinite God that we serve. That is the infinite God who stepped in and saved us. It's the infinite God who sat there and said, nope, I'm going to pick you up when you're down. It's the infinite God that when you are frustrated and turn your back on him, he goes, I'm still here. It's the infinite God who reigns and rules in heaven and nothing can contain him, but yet he's still very real and present in you. Isaiah 45:22 says this, turn to me and be saved, all you ends of the earth, for I am God and there is no other. There is nothing else, there is no one else, there is nowhere else that you could be except for with him. Nothing else will fill the gap. Nothing else will hold it together for you. Nothing else is going to be able to help you except for him. To allow him in and say, God, I am not going to put limits on you anymore. God, you are limitless, and I will let you stay limitless. Let's pray today. God, I thank you that you are infinite. God, that you have no limits. God, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry if we have limited you, God. I'm sorry if we've limited you in our worship. I'm sorry if we've limited you in our lives. I'm sorry if we've limited how much you can work in us. God, I'm sorry that I think that I own this temple. God, that my temple is yours. I'm sorry, God, at times that I have viewed you as being big and being far away, and God, I have felt like I didn't deserve anything from you. And God, I'm sorry that I've brought you so close and tried to wrap my head around who you are, and I've made you too much like me, that I've lost the weight. I've lost the weight of who you are as the one who sits on the throne. God, I thank you that you sit on a throne, but yet you're present here. God, I thank you that you're still a part of the creation that you made, and you want to be intimate with that creation. God, I'm sorry if we've put expectations on you. And we've put expectations in our prayer life, and we've put expectations in our worship time. And God, we've just laid expectation after expectation after expectation. I'm sorry, God, that we've attempted to measure you. But God, let us see you rightly. God, let us take your nature, Father, and let it, God, we just ask that you write your nature on our hearts. God, as we've gone through this series of just knowing your nature, knowing who you are, knowing, God, details about you. God, let our prayer language with you change. Let us begin to tell you what we think of you, what you mean to us, and why we love you the way we love you. God, I ask today that you just speak to us. And God, let us be okay if you don't say anything. Let us sit in your presence. Let us sit in the quiet, listening for your voice. But God, most importantly, Father, let us just experience the weight of your presence, the shift in the room. Let us know that you're near. God, I pray that you go with your people, that you continue to speak to them this week. God, we just love you. We love you for being everywhere, for being all-powerful, for being all-knowing. We love you, God. Amen.